is leasing a bad idea? The reality of it is that leasing companies who aren't predatory are there to help those people who don't necessarily have the money set aside to walk into a bank and say, hey, I need $150,000 to go buy this truck. So I'm Brent. I work as a leasing manager. Been doing it about 10 years now.
Hey everybody, I'm Robbie. I'm the lead recruiter here at ATS, and today we're just going to talk about leasing and really what makes it appealing and maybe what some of the pitfalls are. We'll just start there. You know, when somebody's looking at a lease, what are some of the things that they should really be looking for?
I think the candidates that we have that do really well in our program are usually drivers that have a good trucking background. You know, they've got some experience under their belt. They know what to expect, what not to expect. So when they take the risk to jump into being a lease driver, they're prepared for that. You know, somebody who is a little more financially stable sometimes can do a little better as well, just because they've got some backbone when it comes to, you know, if things go wrong and don't go the way that they should. But I think that, you know, drivers really have the experience coming in, have the right attitude, and know that things are going to go really well sometimes, and things that may not go as well sometimes. So
yeah, and from my point of view, I see the same thing. You know, somebody maybe with 6 months and just kind of getting their feet wet in the industry may want to wait a little while and learn a little more. Really, when somebody's looking at a lease, my recommendation always is learn as much as you can about every aspect. And there's so many different leases, right? There's so many. We actually did an article on this because it's such a big deal that, you know, this company pays this percentage, this company pays that percentage, and it really comes down to, you know, where those expenses are, right?
Yep. And what your bottom line. I mean, you know, you could be getting paid 70%, or at a different company you're getting paid 62%. But where do the expenses lie in that? You know, the one with 70% probably has more expenses than the one with 62. You know, those are some of the things to look for, and ask those questions prior to signing on with somebody.
Yeah, and some of the common ones I see are things like one has a trailer rental or maintenance fee, one doesn't. One makes you pay for your plates, the other one doesn't. Yep. Does the company provide insurance?
No.
Right? So when you look at that for like any independent contractor, as a company driver, often you're going to get company sponsored benefits, health, dental, vision, life. And as a lease driver, you kind of got to go out there on the open market and find your own.
Yeah, because you're an independent contractor, so you're not going to get the benefits of being, you know, a company employee. So yeah, you're at a little bit more of a disadvantage that way. So you really have to weigh the risks and whether or not that's worth it to you, and where you're at, you know, as far as needing health insurance. You know, if you're younger, don't have as many ailments, things like that, it might play into what insurance that you buy and what kind of cost that comes with that. So
sure.
So yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's a little bit more difficult to get health insurance, you know, and it's more expensive. But there are programs out there that cater to truck drivers and people that, you know, work over the road. They try to, you know, they do their best to keep the prices as low as they can and make sure it's a good program, a good fit for that person.
Yep. So what's the one thing you would tell a driver? Let's say they've been in the industry for a couple of years, they've been a company driver, and they really want to look at being an independent contractor and doing a lease. What's the one thing you say, be aware of this?
Probably maintenance costs. It's something that you don't really think about, and you hope that everything goes well and you're not going to have any problems. And even in brand new trucks, that could not be the case. Maintenance costs, as in the downtime, is probably one of the bigger things to really be prepared for, because even though you may have the money set aside, do you have the money set aside to take the downtime and to be able to handle that when you're not making any money because the truck's broken down? And that's one of the risks as being a lease driver you have to really think about going into it, is that you can't just jump into a different truck when things aren't going well with your truck. You have to work through it, and you have to get your repairs done and pay for the costs that are associated with that. And so that can be sometimes tough if you're not prepared for it.
Sure. And so we're talking a lot about a lot of pitfalls here, but there are good sides, and we'll get to them. So with the maintenance thing, yeah, I mean, you look at, your loss of revenue, right? If you're out on the road, are you going to get a hotel room for while you're waiting for your truck, or are you going to get some sort of transportation home? And these are all things an independent contractor needs to be prepared for, because that ultimately falls on them, right?
Right. Yep.
Another thing that I hear about often is the cost of fuel, right? We've been through this time now with the fuel prices have been up, and they've been up for, an extended period of time now, right? So the industry's everybody in the industry is kind of getting used to that. But somebody who hasn't been an independent contractor and been responsible for that before, what are some things they can do to help themselves, with fuel costs?
I think some of the biggest things are going to be your idle time. Trying to limit that so you're not running the truck when you don't have to be. Either, getting into a lease truck with an APU can help with that, or just, if you run in climates that you're able to shut the truck off, that can help with that. Fueling up when not fueling all the way up. So fueling for what you need for that specific load, and then only doing that when it's needed.
Sure.
Versus putting 100 gallons in when you only needed 20 to make that delivery. That can help offset those costs and spread them out over a longer period of time.
So just trip planning in general.
Yep. And doing good maintenance on your tractor. So doing all the preventative maintenance on time when it needs to be done, so that the engine is working at its prime efficiency. That can help as well. And if you're jumping into a lease program, think about the fact that the truck that you may not exactly want to get into may be the one that you need to get into because of the fuel efficiency.
Okay.
I know a lot of guys love big nose Pete's and no fairings and all the other things that make a truck more fuel efficient. Something to think about. That it's going to cost me more fuel. Is that trade-off worth it?
Yeah, I remember when, and you remember too. We've both been here about the same amount of time, when the industry kind of transitioned away from those long nose, right? And as the industry as a whole, and it was for that reason.
Right.
So some common misconceptions about a lease. Any come to your mind right off the top of your head?
One that comes to mind is predatory leasing. I hear about that quite often, read about that. So is leasing a bad idea? Is it? And you'll hear both sides of the story out there on the internet, and different guys will tell you, don't ever lease. It's the worst deal in the whole industry. Go out and buy your own truck. The reality of it is that leasing companies who aren't predatory, the ones that want to help you succeed and get into a tractor, are there to help those people who don't necessarily have the money set aside to walk into a bank and say, hey, I need $150,000 to go buy this truck. Leasing can be a good avenue to start out as an independent contractor, get into a good piece of equipment that's going to do you well over the long run, but without the upfront costs. A lot of times it's no money down or very little money down, and manageable, payments and insurance and those kinds of things. So I wouldn't say that leasing is always bad. Do you want to look at the fine print and make sure that it meets your needs and that you understand it? Absolutely. Because there are some companies out there that do take advantage of people and put you into an old truck that's going to give you a lot of problems with a high payment, but they may say you're going to own it at the end. Well, are you, if your engine goes down and you need to put $50,000 into it?
Sure.
I don't know, but it's a good avenue to go to start to learn how to be an independent contractor without the upfront cost of that.
Yeah, so definitely do your research. Make sure you're getting into a lease that's not one of those, right? Because it's the same with anything in the world. A couple of bad apples kind of spoils it for everybody, right? And we really shouldn't let it do that, because there's nowhere else to be able to go in no money down or very little money down and own a piece of equipment like this is a great opportunity, right?
Yep. And they keep getting more and more expensive.
Yeah.
And it's going to get harder and harder because, if the cost of a truck has gone up, 20-30% over the last 10 years or so, it's only making it harder to get approval for a loan, and then at what cost? What is your interest rate? Does it make sense? Do your payments make sense for how much money you're making on your settlements? All those things play a role in that. Sure.
One of the ones I hear is, there's some shorter term leases out there, some longer term leases out there. Sometimes people will just expect, I'm going to own the truck when this term is done. And that's not always the case, right?
Right, yeah. So there's things there's lease purchases where you would own the truck at the end, or there would be a low buyout, maybe $1 I've seen before.
Yep.
There's also leases with the option to purchase. So you're leasing it for a certain amount of time, and then there's a X dollar buyout at the end where you can purchase the truck if you wanted to. I've seen where There's just leases where you don't own anything in it, and you won't ever own anything in it. So it's really comes down to what is your personal preference? What's your end goal? You just want a piece of equipment to be able to use to, provide for your family and make the money that you want to make, but not really have that ownership, on the horizon? Or is it something where you want to own a truck, but you don't have the means to go get financing on your own? And that's where, my program comes into play. Is we do more of a option to purchase, where we give you the option to buy the truck at the end, but you don't have to. And, some guys do and some don't, and, we give that option. So
sure.
But everybody does it a little differently, and it's all dependent on the equipment and what their goal is as a leasing company as well.
Yep. Here's another one. I have a lot of drivers. I talk to a lot of drivers, and I have a lot of drivers call me and say, I'm an owner-operator. Mm-hmm. And then when we get right down to it, they are leasing their truck currently. Yep. So is leasing the same as being an owner-operator?
I would say yes in some aspects, no in others.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is it's a pride thing. I mean, if you're out on the road and you came from being a company driver and now you want to be an independent contractor, you're an owner-operator in some worlds. An owner-operator to me is somebody who owns the tractor, that their name is on the title. Whether or not they have a bank involved, that it doesn't matter. But it depends on who you talk to, I think. As a lease operator, are you an owner-operator? Sure. Yeah, you are.
Yep.
But it depends on how you want to look at it and who owns the tractor. Be like you or I, if we went to the truck dealer and we wanted to get a new Chevy pickup, for example. You bought yours and I leased mine. What's the difference?
Sure.
Right? You're at the end going to own that vehicle. Me, I'm not going to own that vehicle, but I could maybe buy it out if I wanted to. So it's the same type of concept.
Okay. So we've talked about some things to look out for and some differences and stuff like that. What are some of the benefits of being an independent contractor and leasing a truck?
I would say the big ones are going to be, the fact that you're independent. It's in the name, independent contractor.
Yep.
You have more say over the things you do and where you go and how you do them. There's some freedom there, and it makes you feel good, in your career that you have that control. The money also can be very lucrative. You can make a lot more money as a contractor in some cases than you could as a company driver. So that can be a real positive thing, and why people normally get into leasing or buying their own truck is they want to have that financial freedom and they want to be able to make the money that they deserve to make.
Yep.
The other thing can be, getting into leasing can allow you to get into a newer tractor and have the control over what that tractor is, how it works in its lifetime. And what I mean by that is basically, if I got into a newer truck and I was in it for 3 or 4 years, I know everything about that truck. I know when it hiccups, what that means, and I know when it does this, what that means. And that can be a big advantage, especially as a contractor, that you're able to utilize that knowledge of your tractor to be able to do right by your business.
Sure.
So
yeah, there's certainly opportunity for earnings. I would say, when you're looking at doing a lease, one of the things to watch out for is I want to do a lease so I can go home more often, right? Quite often as an independent contractor, you still got the expenses. You're going to need to put in as much time as when you were a company driver. Not because somebody requires you to, but because you're driven to be successful, right?
Yep.
If you're driven to be successful, this is the right path for you.
Yep. And the people that know that and are able to manage that are very successful.
Yes.
And I've seen many, many drivers, independent contractors who have come through my door, lease a truck with me, and have been very, very successful in doing that, and have done it multiple times, and sometimes, they'll buy a truck out and get, they'll use that truck for years and then come back to me and say, hey, this one, is kind of on its last leg. I'm going to come back to you and lease another truck because of how successful it was.
Sure.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of success out there, and being prepared for the unknown is probably the number one thing I would say, that you want to be prepared for those situations that put you down and and that will help you be successful.
Yep, absolutely. Let's say I've never done a lease. I've been with company X doing dry van for 5 years, but I've always thought about flatbed or tanker or one of the other things. Should I, as a driver, be coming in and trying to learn lease and a new trailer type at the same time? I lean towards no. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, it depends on the driver. I think it depends on the person and how quickly they can grasp those things. Me being biased towards leasing, I'm going to tell you, yeah, they should come in and lease for me, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I agree. That you may need some hand holding to understand the freight, understand where that freight is, how you handle that type of freight, and if there's permits involved. There's a lot of different nuances there, and you may not want to jump in fully at first, but if you move into a company that's successful and you're able to be a company driver for a while and learn that this is where I belong and this works for me, then yeah, leasing would be a great opportunity to move the career forward for sure.
Sure. Brent, we talked about, a whole bunch of different scenarios, leases and whatnot. A little bit about our lease, and I'd love for you to share about, we've got the 2-year lease in the dry van division, and that's really a good opportunity, and why it's such a good opportunity with ATS.
I would say the biggest thing is, we've got some of the best equipment on the road today, the most safety features of any of the trucks on the road. We've got very fuel efficient models that help you be successful, and we try to keep our payments manageable. So we're not trying to get the most money out of somebody. We're trying to help them be successful, and we mold that program that we have around ATS's freight and how they manage their drivers. So I think that our advantage in the market is really that is we take really good care of our lease customers. We try to do right by them in almost every single situation. We try to keep our payments and our costs down as much as we can, and we also try to make sure that we have good equipment that stays on the road and doesn't break down all the time.
Yeah, so I talk to a ton of drivers, and that's the one biggest thing I notice is how our fixed costs are very, very competitive in the market. We have some of the lowest fixed costs in the industry when it comes to leasing. And to go even a step farther, with all the support that they have. So they've got the support from you with the truck and trailer and everything, and then we've got all the support back at the office. Everybody working to make the drivers successful and do everything we can to have them earn as much as they can, right?
And coming from the leasing company side of things, I think that we really try to cater to the carrier that we're dealing with. So it may be vans, it may be flatbed company, it may be a different company that does completely different types of things, and we may lease a truck on with another company. We always try to apply that same methodology to everything that we do as a leasing company. We try to make sure that our program matches what they're offering, and to make sure that it's true. The worst thing you can do as a contractor is go to a company that says you're going to make X amount of dollars, and you get there and you find out the leasing company is charging you way more than you thought, or the company isn't going to pay you as much as you thought. And I think we're very transparent about that, and I think that we really try to make sure that we as a team try to make that the most seamless situation as possible.
And we do, and as a recruiter, I'm really grateful for that what we're talking about is aligned with what you're talking about, with what operations is talking about, with and everybody's aligned, and I'm really grateful for that. I can be a true driver consultant then at that point. Mm-hmm. One of the other things I have a lot of conversations with drivers about, and I'm sure you probably do too, is the term Walkaway Lease. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about that a little bit, Brent?
Yeah, So I've heard that term over the years, and I would say that there are companies out there that have true walkaway leases, where things aren't going well, you want to just turn the truck in, you do it the right way, you turn it and walk away. There are other leasing opportunities out there that also are not like that. They may call it the walkaway lease because you can walk away from it at any time, but you're still obligated to the contract terms. So it kind of ties me back to looking at the contract, understanding what walkaway really means for that company, if that's what they call it, and what does that look like if I were to walk away mid-lease. Let's say I'm in a 2-year lease, and a year into it, things aren't going the way that you thought they were going to. Something happens at home where it hinders you from being able to continue the way that you were going. What does that look like on the back end? So if the company says, okay, yep, we agree that you can turn the truck back in, is there expenses involved with that? Are there things that they're going to take to fix the truck up or clean the truck, those types of things after you turn it back in? My opinion, I wouldn't necessarily consider that a walkaway lease, because you're not necessarily just walking away from it.
Sure.
Like dropping the match and walking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more of, I understood my contract. Yes, I walked away from my lease, and it has, may not have any impact on my credit or things like that, but there might be other financial things to consider when
Sure.
you do that.
So really no difference than the scenario you gave earlier if you go lease a truck from the Chevy dealer,
Mhm.
right? You when you're signing that lease at the beginning, you want to know what you're signing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And you're usually obligated to whatever the length of the contract is.
Mm-hmm.
I know from my personal experience leasing a car, if I wanted to get out of the lease in the middle of it, I could definitely do that in most cases, but I'd be obligated to the payments that are left, so they would say, okay, you owe us this many payments, and that's how you would need to get out of the vehicle.
Yep.
It needs to be in good working condition and all those things. So if consumer leases are not necessarily the same as regular, car leases.
Yep.
When it comes to that, but it is something to think about.
Sure. Brent, we've talked a lot about leases, and here at ATS, we do have a great lease program. I feel really good talking to drivers about our short-term and even our long-term leases, but more so on my side, I talk more about the short-term leases, the 1 or 2 year leases. As a driver, if you're interested in that, check us out at Drive4ATS. You can apply right on our website. You can call a recruiter. I would encourage you to call a recruiter or reach out via email and just start that getting information. As a driver consultant, that's what we're here for, is to answer your questions, and we'll even help you compare our lease to other leases. For more videos and articles, check out the Learning Center on our website. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.